I'm going to give you an overview of the Mirth Connect Administrator, how to launch it, and some of the features available in it. I'll go through the dashboard, the message browser, channels, users, settings, alerts, events, and Mirth Connect extensions. First, you'll need to launch the Mirth Connect Administrator. You can do this by pointing your web browser to the URL of the Mirth Connect server, along with whatever port you're hosting the Mirth Connect server on. This is defined when you install Mirth, or through the Mirth Connect Server Manager, or through the Mirth Connect properties. In this case, I'm pointing it to the URL it's being hosted on, and I get this web page where I can launch the Mirth Connect Administrator. I'll go ahead and click Launch and let the Mirth Connect Administrator launch. If this is your first time launching it, the Mirth Connect Administrator will automatically be downloaded to your computer and cached for later use. The server URL should be automatically filled in, and you'll just need to type in your username and password. Now I'm logged into the Mirth Connect Administrator. I'm presented with the dashboard view. The dashboard view shows all of my currently deployed channels. In this case, I have 5 deployed channels, and I see some stats about those channels. From here, I can go into one of the channels and view the messages in that channel. I could do it by double-clicking it, or by clicking the channel, and then hitting View Messages on the left. On the left, you'll see tasks related to whatever view you're in. In the current case, I'm in the dashboard view, and I see tasks related to the dashboard. I can also right-click at any point and see the same tasks, so I don't need to go to the left to see the dashboard tasks. So I could click View Messages. Once I view messages, I can see all of the currently processed messages that are stored for this channel. In this case, I can see the source message and each destination message that was processed. For each message, I can view the raw, that's what came in, the transform data, what was processed by Mirth Connect in that transformer, and the encoded, what that transformer sent out. I can also view mappings that were created in this channel. These were done in the transformer. If there were any errors, I would see those here, and there's also some metadata about every message. I'll go back to the dashboard and see that the dashboard also allows me to control each channel. On each channel, I could start it, stop it, pause it, remove messages, clear stats, or undeploy it. I can also send messages manually to a channel. If I want to stop the channel, I can just click it, right-click it, and hit stop. Now the channel is currently stopped and it won't receive any more messages. I can also start it back up when I'm ready. And if I go to the connection log, I can see current connections that are going on with this channel. I can see where I disconnected it and where it was initialized. The server log will show all of the current messages that are happening on the server. If any errors happen, they would be displayed here. Now I'll leave the dashboard and go to the channels view. The channels view shows all of the channels that have been created on this server. If your channels are enabled, they'll be automatically deployed when you hit Deploy All. You could disable a channel if you don't want that channel to be deployed when you deploy all. I'll hit Disable Channel. If I redeploy all, I should see that channel has disappeared. I could also manually undeploy any channel at any given time. I could redeploy that channel by right-clicking it and hitting Just Deploy on that specific channel. And you'll see I can't actually deploy this channel because it's not enabled. I could enable it first, and now I can manually deploy that channel or deploy all. You'll see how the dashboard shows all of the currently deployed channels, or the channels view, you'll see all channels that you've created on the server, even if they haven't been deployed. In this case, I could also create a new channel. I can name it whatever I want. I'll define a source and a destination for that channel, and I can save it. Now if I go back to the channels view, I'll see it's there and it's enabled. If If I do another deploy all, this channel would be deployed. But right now, there's only a subset of the created channels on the dashboard because these are only the deployed channels. Furthermore, if I make a change to a channel, say I were to go into this LLP receiver, if I go to the source, let me change the port to 6665, go ahead and hit save. Now if I go back to the channel view, then go to the dashboard, I'll actually see that this revision delta has increased to 1. That means that the currently deployed channel is 1 revision out of date. I could go in furthermore and edit the channel again, change the port again, save it, view the dashboard once more, and I'll see that it's 2 revisions out of date. If I want to update that, I can redeploy this channel. Now the listener, after I redeploy it, will be on the new port. The revision delta is now in sync. There are no additional changes that need to be deployed for this channel, but I will see that this channel was just deployed, and this will be highlighted. The channel was last deployed at 12:54, and this will stay highlighted for a minute or two while the channel has been recently deployed. You can see descriptions of each of these fields above. Now I'll go back into this channel, change the port back to the one I wanted to, and I'll re-enter the channel view. The Mirth Connect instance I'm connecting to has a plugin called the Channel History plugin. Currently this is available to support customers only, but here you can see the different changes that I've made to this channel. I can view the current revision, it's the XML of the channel, and I can view any of the other revisions if I'd like to. I just changed the channel back to port 6661, so I'll do a compare. If I go down here, it highlights the differences in the channel. If I look right here on the source connector, I'll see that the port was changed from 6664 to 6661. See, the 4 was removed and the 1 was added. You can also see that things like the last modified time and the revision number always change. If I wanted to revert, I could simply click this and hit revert, and that would revert the channel to the older version. You can also see when the channel was modified and the user that modified it. If I go into edit a channel, on the summary I have specific options like enabling the channel, setting its initial state, if it starts as stopped when you deploy it or if it starts as started, setting the data types throughout the channel, what each transformer processes the channel as, what data type. I can set whether or not to store messages and whether or not to encrypt messages in the database. Once you start storing a lot of messages, you might want to turn on message pruning, and then you can set messages for this specific channel to prune after a specific number of days so that your database doesn't fill up. On the source, I can set the connector that I want to use. Here you can see a subset of some of the connectors that we have available to you. On the Destination tab, you choose what connector you want to send out over. In this case, I created a channel that's sending out to nowhere. It's using a channel writer, and I've just set the channel name to be none. I could also forward this message to any of the other channels I have deployed. I could also select any of the other destinations available to me. If I wanted to send the messages out to multiple destinations, I could simply hit New Destination. I could choose a different connector type, and now it will send out to multiple destinations. Any of these destinations can also be enabled or disabled. I also have a Scripts tab with basic scripts surrounding the channel. First, there's a deploy script. This is a script that is executed whenever the channel is deployed. There's a shutdown script, a script that is executed anytime the channel is shut down. There's a preprocessor script. This is called every time that a message is received before the message enters the transformer, so you can do any sort of cleanup or removal of invalid characters on the message if you need to for it to parse. And there's the post processor. This script is run after all of the destinations have executed. Now I'd like to show you the transformer and filter. If I enter this channel, I'll look at the source, and I'll see that I'm receiving over LP, but I also have a filter and I have a transformer. In this case, I have 2 filter steps, and I have 24 transformer steps. Let's look at the filter. Inside the filter, you can see I have 2 rule builder steps. These rule builder steps were created by going to the message template, pasting in a sample template, going to the message tree, and then drag and dropping fields I want to filter on. In this case, I knew I wanted to filter on the message type. I could filter for it there, or I can drill directly into the XML. And here I can look in the tree for message type 9.1. MSH 9.1, just drag over the value. And here I can see I want to accept this message if the field it's been populated for me. And I can say I want to accept it if it equals, and I'll type ORU. You should put this in quotes here because you could also use variables if you don't put quotes. In this case, I want it to equal the static value of ORU. I'll delete that rule because you can see I added that one already, and I also added one more rule, which is MSH 9.2 needs to equal R01. I could also add a new step manually, and I could change the step type from a rule builder to a JavaScript step. If a step is JavaScript, I can do the same thing that I did above, except I use return true or return false. In this case, I could say if the value of MSH 9.1 is equal to ORU, then I want to return true. That means I want to accept this message. Else, let's return false. Now any non-ORU message will be filtered out by this channel. Let's look at the transformer code for this channel. In this case, I have a lot of different mapper steps. Mapper steps are created similar to rule builder steps. Let's say I want to find the patient's given name. I could search for given name, and I'll find that that's in PID 5.2. Once again, I've pasted in a sample message template in order to generate this data. I'll drag over the patient's given name, and I'll see that a new mapper step has been created. It's been assigned to a variable. I can name it whatever I want, and it's adding it to the channel map. This means that I can use it anywhere in the channel. There are also connector maps, global maps, and response maps for different scopes. I'll go ahead and delete this step, and you can see that I could also manually add new steps in the same way I did the rule builder. I'll add a new step. I'll change it to be the JavaScript type. And once again, I can drag and drop a value. Say I want to drag and drop the patient's given name. Well, here I have the value, but I want to put it in the channel map. If I go to the Reference tab, I can search for channel, and I'll see this option here to put a channel map variable. Let's create a new line, and I'll drag and drop that. Here I see the syntax for putting a variable in the channel map. I want the key to equal given name, and I want the value to be this content that I dragged over. Now in the same way as before, I'm putting a variable in the channel map called given name. I just did it manually rather than drag and dropping it and using the mapper step. Anywhere you can enter JavaScript in Mirth, you can also enter your own Java code, including your own libraries. Let's go back to the channel view to look at a different channel. In this case, I'll look at a channel that's using a different step type. This channel is building up an HL7 message from scratch. We're receiving XML, and I'm building up HL7. I've pasted an outbound message template, and this is the data that will be sent out if nothing is replaced. In this case, however, I wanted to replace specific values in this message template. In the message tree, I'll look for the patient first name. In the message tree below, I'll also look for the patient first name, which I already know is in PID 5.2. I'll drag the value of first name from here down to the outbound message template. Once I drop it, you'll see a message builder step has been created. The mapping that was automatically created is mapping from the patient first name to PID 5.2 in the outbound template. It's coming from the incoming message and going to the outbound template. I could also do the same thing as the JavaScript step as before. In that case, I'll drag and drop the value I want it mapped into. You'll see that it's outbound template PID 5.2, and I'll set it equal to the value from patient first name. That's the same thing as what I did before when I dragged from one tree down to the other, but using JavaScript instead. That's it for channels, so now let's take a look at users. I'll go to the users view, and here I can see the different users I have created. If I wanted to add a new user, I could simply click New User. Or if I wanted to edit a user, I could simply open that user, double click it, or hit Edit, and I could change any of the user's information. Now let's look at settings. In settings, I have a bunch of different tabs for different areas of settings. First, I have the server settings. The server settings, you handle general configuration information, like clearing the global map on redeploy, checking for updates, sending usage stats, the update URL, the maximum queue size internally in Mirth Connect, and your email information for your SMTP server. All of these settings are specific to the server. Users also have their own administrator settings. In this case, they can change their dashboard refresh interval, their default page sizes for messages and events, and whether or not they want to format the XML in the message browser. All instances of Mirth Connect also come with a message pruner. Message pruner, you schedule daily, hourly, weekly, or monthly pruning times in order to prune old messages. Once again, these messages are pruned based on the configurations in your channel. This instance of Mirth Connect also has a couple extra plugins. Some of these are available to you if you're on support, such as the user authorization plugin, where you can create different user roles with different permissions. In this case, we have one user that's created as the operator, where he can only view alerts, view messages, start or stop channels, view events. And there's also the SSL manager, where you can add SSL to different connectors. Now let's look at alerts. In the alerts view, you'll see that I've already created one alert, and I can create new alerts simply by hitting New Alert. I can enable them or disable them, and I can edit alerts and apply them to different channels. In this case, I have one alert applied to this channel. I have an email address entered to receive alerts. I could enter multiple email addresses here if I want, or I can enter an SMS carrier if I want to send a text message. I have an error matching field here where I've dragged over error 408, which is an MLP connector error. If I want to accept any errors and send an alert on any error in that channel, I could drag over any. Here you enter an email subject and an email body for the alert. The email subject and the body both accept the alert variables on the right. In this case, I'm specifying the channel and its name, the date it happened, the error message, and then the actual error, which is the full stack trace. Now let's look at events. In the event view, you can see all of the events that have happened based on your filter criteria. Here you can see some of the things that have happened right now, where I retrieved the alerts, I got the server settings, I updated users, and so on. This is a good way of seeing audit log information, and if you look at specific information here, you can see that I deployed a specific channel, a deployed channel call, and here you can even see the channel IDs that were deployed. For calls done by users, you can also see the IP of the user that performed that operation. If you've limited permissions on specific users, you can also see if they tried to attempt a call that wasn't allowed. If that's the case, an X will appear here instead of the check mark. Message pruner information is also stored in the event table. So if you want to see specific message pruning information about when the message pruner finished pruning and how many messages it pruned on each channel, that will be shown in the event table as well. Now let's look at extensions. Each connector in Mirth is actually an extension. You can see here these are all listed and created with an author of Mirth Corporation. You can also see the version of each of these plugins. In the extensions view, you also see a list of plugins that aren't connectors. Here you can see some of the plugins that we have in Mirth Connect. If you want more information on a specific plugin, you can simply double-click it. Here you get information on that plugin, a URL to the author, and a description of the plugin. The extension framework in Mirth Connect also allows you to create your own extensions if you like. In this view, you can also install additional extensions, or uninstall or disable extensions. That's it for the Mirth Connect Administrator overview, so I'll go ahead and log out.